A Dream in Peril. Introduction. The rise of Alexis Foster. The story begins by introducing Alexis Foster, a determined and visionary black woman in her mid-30s who grew up in a working-class neighborhood. Raised by a single mother who juggled multiple jobs, Alexis learned the value of hard work, community, and resilience from an early age. After putting herself through college with scholarships and part-time jobs, she went on to build her own company, Bright Horizons, a burgeoning chain of eco-friendly meal delivery services. The company stood for sustainable food practices, fair employment, and inclusivity, values Alexis held dear. But success hadn't come easy. Alexis faced countless barriers, including racism, sexism, and doubters who told her she was reaching too high. Yet she persevered, proving them wrong at every step. Setting the stage. A troubling discovery. The story jumps to a pivotal moment. Alexis has just returned to the U.S. after securing a deal to expand Bright Horizons internationally. Exhausted but thrilled by her progress, she steps off the plane, eager to share the good news with her team. However, her excitement dims when she opens her phone to a slew of concerning messages from her COO, HR director, and other executives. The messages report a wave of troubling allegations, employees complaining of racial discrimination, gender bias, and toxic treatment in several locations. Alexis's heart sinks as she reads about supervisors mocking workers, assigning unfair shifts, and creating a hostile work environment. The conflict deepens. Alexis convenes an emergency meeting with her executive team that same evening. The allegations are not isolated incidents. They're widespread, hinting at a systemic problem. The accusations are so serious that some employees have threatened legal action, and the company's reputation is hanging by a thread. The meeting reveals another layer of the problem. Some managers deny the allegations, brushing them off as exaggerations, while others express alarm but offer no clear solutions. The HR director suggests conducting an internal investigation, but Alexis knows that wouldn't be enough. How could this happen under my watch? Alexis asks herself silently. Her mission to create an inclusive and equitable workplace now feels like a cruel illusion. Determined to understand the depth of the issue, she decides on an unorthodox solution. She will go undercover. The plan. Becoming Leila Johnson. Alexis works with a trusted friend, a professional disguise artist, to create a new identity. Over the next week, Alexis transforms into Leila Johnson, a single mother struggling to make ends meet. She adopts a worn-out wardrobe, a soft Southern accent, and a humble demeanor. With the help of her HR director, she secures a job as a delivery driver and part-time dishwasher at one of the busiest branches of Bright Horizons. Her new workplace is located in a city she once considered a stronghold of her brand's values. If things are bad here, she thinks grimly, then they might be even worse elsewhere. First impressions. On her first day as Leila, Alexis arrives at the restaurant nervous but resolute. The scene inside shocks her. The once vibrant kitchen she envisioned is now a place of tension and fear. Employees hustle under the sharp gaze of supervisors who bark orders and rarely offer praise. Alexis receives a cold welcome from Rick, the shift manager, who barely looks at her as he assigns her tasks. He calls her dishwasher girl and thrusts a pair of gloves into her hands, ignoring her attempts to ask questions. As Alexis starts scrubbing dishes, she overhears conversations that make her stomach churn. One worker complains that she's been denied time off for a family emergency. Another mutters about how the new hires always get treated like dirt. The first blow. Casual racism. During her lunch break, Alexis eats in the cramped break room with several employees, trying to blend in. The atmosphere is far from welcoming. Conversations are dominated by a group of older workers who make snide comments about newcomers, particularly immigrants, and workers of color. Bet she can't even read the delivery manifest, one man says about a new Somali employee, laughing cruelly. His friends join in. Alexis notices the young Somali woman across the room. Sitting alone, her shoulders hunched as she picks at her food. The final straw comes when Rick enters the break room and mocks Alexis's southern accent, imitating it loudly for the amusement of others. The room erupts in laughter. Alexis feels a surge of anger but forces herself to stay silent, knowing she can't blow her cover. A moment of kindness. Not everyone in the kitchen shares in the toxic behavior. Alexis befriends Maya, a seasoned cook who offers her advice on surviving the job. Maya confides that she's been passed over for promotions multiple times despite being one of the most skilled employees. They always pick the guys, Maya says bitterly, especially the ones who fit their idea of what a manager should look like. Maya's kindness stands out in a hostile environment, and Alexis resolves to learn more about her story. Closing scene. The burden of knowledge. As Alexis drives home after her first shift, still dressed as Leela, she feels overwhelmed by the weight of what she's witnessed. The discrimination is worse than she imagined, and the thought of how many other locations might be suffering the same fate is crushing. She parks in front of her home and sits in the car for a long time, staring at the dashboard. "I built this company to uplift people, not tear them down," she whispers to herself. "I can't let it end like this." With renewed determination, Alexis begins to outline her plan for gathering more evidence and holding the right people accountable. She knows the journey ahead will be grueling, but she's ready to fight for the company she believes in and for the employees who deserve better. Cliffhanger ending for Part 1. As Alexis steps out of her car, her phone buzzes. It's a text from Maya. "I need to talk to you about something. It's important. Can we meet after work tomorrow?" Alexis's heart pounds as she reads the message. What could Maya know? And how deep does the corruption in her company truly go? The depths of the problem. Introduction. A meeting in the shadows. The next evening, Alexis, disguised as Leela, meets Maya in the employee parking lot after their shift. The dim lighting casts long shadows, reflecting the secrecy of their conversation. Maya's hands tremble as she clutches a worn notebook. "I don't know why I'm trusting you with this," Maya begins, her voice low and hesitant. "But you seem different. You actually listen." She hands the notebook to Alexis. Inside, it's filled with notes, dates, and descriptions of incidents at the restaurant. Racial slurs, unfair scheduling practices, withheld promotions, and even instances of harassment. Maya has been documenting everything for months. "I've been trying to build a case," Maya explains. "HR keeps brushing me off, and the managers act like they're untouchable. If I report this to anyone higher up, I'm afraid they'll fire me, or worse." Alexis thanks her and promises to help. She's careful not to reveal her true identity, but the weight of Maya's trust deepens her resolve. Witnessing the systemic rot. The next few days provide Alexis with more opportunities to observe the toxic environment. She rotates between her dishwasher and delivery driver duties, gaining a broader view of the company's operations. The kitchen. Supervisors openly mock workers, often targeting those with accents or darker skin. One cook, Alonso, is ridiculed for his broken English, despite being one of the hardest workers. Alexis notices he never speaks up, his silence likely born out of fear of losing his job. Scheduling abuse. Alexis learns that schedules are frequently manipulated to benefit the manager's favorites. Workers who are considered difficult or different are given late-night shifts or back-to-back schedules, making it nearly impossible for them to balance their personal lives. Delivery bias. While on delivery routes, Alexis sees firsthand how the lucrative areas are reserved for a select few. Her route, filled with long drives to remote areas, contrasts sharply with the easier, higher-tipping downtown routes given to drivers who fit the preferred image of the company. A harrowing experience. During a delivery to a wealthy neighborhood, Alexis encounters a particularly hostile customer. The man refuses to tip her, belittling her for being late, even though traffic delays were unavoidable. His tone is dripping with condescension as he adds, "You people are always making excuses." Alexis clenches her jaw, her professional demeanor barely holding as she apologizes and walks back to her car. Once inside, she grips the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles white. She's experienced this kind of treatment before, but knowing that her employees endure this regularly stokes a fire in her. Her frustration grows when she returns to the restaurant and overhears a manager dismissing another driver's similar complaint. "That's just part of the job," the manager says coldly. "If you can't handle it, maybe you're not cut out for this work." Breaking barriers with Javier. One night after a grueling shift, Alexis notices Javier, a quiet kitchen worker, lingering by the back entrance. His normally stoic expression is replaced with one of deep sadness. When she approaches, he hesitates but eventually confides in her. Javier reveals that his manager has been exploiting his undocumented status, forcing him to work unpaid overtime, and threatening to report him to immigration authorities if he complains. "I have no choice," Javier says, his voice breaking. "If I lose this job, my family back home won't survive." Alexis feels an overwhelming mix of anger and guilt. This is the kind of exploitation her company was supposed to prevent, yet it's happening right under her nose. She assures Javier that things will change, even though she can't yet reveal how. Uncovering a deeper conspiracy. Maya's notebook becomes a vital tool as Alexis starts piecing together the bigger picture. The notes point to patterns of abuse that go beyond individual locations, suggesting a systemic issue across the company. Alexis identifies key players among the management who perpetuate the toxic culture, many of whom seem to shield each other from accountability. One name stands out: Brad, the regional manager. Maya's notes describe him as the puppet master behind much of the discrimination. He's known for favoring employees who fit his narrow vision of professionalism, while sidelining or outright sabotaging others. Alexis's suspicions are confirmed when she overhears Brad during a visit to the restaurant. He openly brags about keeping problematic employees in line and scoffs at the company's mission statement, calling it PR fluff. The tipping point: a public humiliation. One day, Alexis witnesses a particularly cruel incident that becomes a turning point in her undercover mission. Raj, a skilled cook who has been with the company for years, is publicly humiliated by Rick during a busy lunch rush. When a small mistake is made on an order, Rick singles out Raj, berating him in front of the entire kitchen. "Maybe if you learned proper English, we wouldn't have these problems," Rick sneers, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. The room falls silent as Raj stares at the floor, his hands trembling. The humiliation is palpable, and Alexis has to fight the urge to reveal her true identity and intervene. Instead, she quietly documents the incident, knowing it will serve as critical evidence later. Small acts of resistance. Despite the toxicity, Alexis begins to notice small acts of resistance among the employees. Maya organizes informal gatherings outside of work, where workers share their grievances and support each other. Alonso, though quiet, often steps in to help coworkers who are struggling, offering them silent encouragement. These moments of solidarity inspire Alexis and remind her why she started Bright Horizons in the first place. She realizes that while the company's culture has been corrupted, the core values she envisioned still exist in the hearts of her employees. The anonymous letter. One evening, Alexis finds an anonymous letter slipped into her locker. The letter details even more disturbing practices, including reports of sexual harassment by a senior manager and evidence that complaints to HR are being deliberately buried. The letter ends with a plea: "If anyone with power is reading this, please help us. We can't keep living like this." Alexis reads the letter multiple times, her hands shaking. She now knows the rot runs deeper than she imagined, and time is running out to fix it. Cliffhanger ending for Part 2. The chapter ends with Alexis sitting in her small apartment, staring at a growing pile of evidence on her desk. Her phone buzzes with a message from her COO. "We've received another formal complaint. Legal is suggesting we prepare for media fallout. What should we do?" Alexis doesn't respond immediately. Instead, she looks at Maya's notebook, Javier's story scrawled on a sticky note, and the anonymous letter. The pieces of the puzzle are coming together, but one question looms over her. How do I fix something so broken without destroying everything I've built? Her reflection in the mirror, disguised as Leela, stares back at her, tired yet determined. Tomorrow, she decides, she'll take the next bold step. The truth beneath the surface. Introduction. A day of reckoning. Alexis, disguised as Leela, steps into her third week undercover at Bright Horizons with a sharpened focus. The stories she's collected have opened her eyes to the company's widespread dysfunction, but she knows she needs irrefutable evidence before she can dismantle the toxic culture. Her mission takes on a greater urgency as she realizes that the employees she's come to know, Maya, Javier, Raj, and others, are counting on her, whether they realize it or not. A risky encounter with Brad. Brad, the regional manager, makes an unannounced visit to the restaurant, sending a ripple of unease through the staff. His towering presence and sharp tongue immediately put everyone on edge. Alexis notices how the kitchen staff stiffens when Brad enters, their movements more mechanical, their conversations reduced to whispers. Leela. Brad barks, glancing at her as she scrubs a greasy tray. Make yourself useful and deliver this to table 7. Alexis, aware of the risk but unwilling to draw attention, complies. She delivers the plate, but overhears Brad mocking her as she walks away. We're really scraping the bottom of the barrel with some of these hires, he says loudly enough for the entire staff to hear. Alexis's fists clench, but she doesn't react. Instead, she discreetly turns on the small recording device hidden in her pocket, capturing Brad's words. The sabotage of Maya. Later that week, Alexis witnesses an incident involving Maya that makes her blood boil. Maya is tasked with preparing the restaurant's signature dish for a catering order, a task she's completed flawlessly dozens of times. However, just as the food is ready to be boxed up, Rick accidentally bumps into her, causing one of the trays to spill. Careless, as always, Rick sneers, loud enough for everyone to hear. Maybe this is why you're not management material. Maya's face turns red as she cleans up the mess. Alexis notices the smirk on Rick's face and realizes this wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate attempt to undermine Maya's competence. That evening, Alexis consoles Maya in the break room. I'm done, Maya says, tears streaming down her face. No matter how hard I work, they always find a way to tear me down. Don't give up yet, Alexis urges, her voice filled with quiet determination. You're stronger than they think. Uncovering the HR cover-up. As Alexis gathers more evidence, she decides to test the system herself. She files a formal complaint with HR, detailing some of the discriminatory practices she's experienced as Leela. The response is as disheartening as she feared. When she follows up a few days later, the HR representative gives her a dismissive reply. We've looked into it, and there's no merit to your claims. Perhaps you misunderstood the situation. Alexis doesn't miss the patronizing tone. The system isn't just broken. It's actively designed to protect the perpetrators. Digging deeper, Alexis uncovers a troubling pattern. Complaints filed by minority employees are consistently dismissed or lost in the system, while complaints by favored employees are escalated and resolved swiftly. She documents everything, determined to expose the hypocrisy. A hidden ally. One night, as Alexis closes out her shift, she's approached by Leo, the assistant manager. Leo has a reputation for being quiet and neutral, avoiding the drama that plagues the restaurant. However, tonight he looks uneasy. I've seen you talking to Maya, Leo says cautiously. She's not wrong about what's happening here. Alexis freezes, unsure of where this is going. I'm tired of it too, Leo continues. I came here believing in Bright Horizons' mission, but it's all a lie. I've seen Brad and Rick manipulate the system, shut down complaints, and force good people out. Alexis realizes she might have found an unexpected ally. She asks Leo why he hasn't spoken up. They'd ruin me, he admits, but maybe if enough people come forward, We can change things. Leo promises to share what he knows, but only if Alexis ensures his anonymity. She agrees, feeling her case growing stronger. The breaking point. Javier's desperation. One evening, Alexis finds Javier sitting outside the restaurant after his shift, his head in his hands. His face is pale, his body trembling. "They're pushing me too far," he says, his voice barely audible. "I can't keep working these hours. I haven't seen my family in weeks." Javier reveals that his manager has increased his unpaid overtime hours, knowing he won't complain because of his undocumented status. Worse, the manager has started hinting at contacting immigration if Javier doesn't comply. Alexis feels her heart break for Javier. She knows this is no longer just about fixing a company. It's about protecting lives. The anonymous meeting. Alexis organizes an off-site meeting with a small group of trusted employees, including Maya, Javier, Leo, and Raj. Under the guise of a casual gathering, she encourages them to share their stories and brainstorm ways to fight back. The meeting becomes a powerful moment of solidarity. For the first time, the employees feel heard and supported. Maya suggests pooling their evidence and presenting it as a united front. "Strength in numbers," Raj says, nodding. "They can't ignore all of us." Alexis listens intently, carefully steering the conversation without revealing her true identity. She knows the time to act is near. The undercover blow-up. During a particularly hectic shift, Alexis reaches her breaking point. Rick publicly berates Javier for a minor mistake, calling him lazy and threatening to report him. The entire kitchen goes silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Before Alexis can stop herself, she steps forward. "That's enough," she says, her voice steady but firm. Rick turns to her, his face contorted with anger. "Who do you think you are, talking to me like that?" "I'm someone who's tired of seeing good people treated like dirt," Alexis replies, her disguise slipping slightly as her CEO confidence begins to shine through. The room erupts into murmurs as Rick glares at her. "You're fired," he snaps, pointing toward the door. Alexis leaves without argument, but her heart races. She knows the moment of truth is approaching. Cliffhanger ending for Part 3. As Alexis drives home, she receives a message from Leo. "Brad is planning to fire Maya tomorrow. He says she's too much trouble. Thought you should know." Alexis grips the steering wheel tightly, her mind racing. It's time to reveal who she really is, but not before she ensures that everyone responsible for the toxicity is held accountable. She pulls into her driveway, her eyes narrowing with determination. "They think they've won," she whispers to herself. But they're about to learn exactly who they're messing with. The big reveal. Introduction. A plan in motion. The next morning, Alexis wakes up with a renewed sense of purpose. The evidence she's collected and the trust she's earned from employees like Maya, Javier, and Leo have strengthened her resolve. She knows the time has come to step out of the shadows and into the light, but not without ensuring that her reveal has the maximum impact. Her first step is to contact her legal team and trusted advisors. She doesn't disclose her full plan yet, but she makes it clear that a major shakeup is about to happen. They are stunned but agree to prepare for a press release and employee-wide meeting at headquarters. An emotional farewell. Before heading to the office, Alexis decides to spend one final day as Leela, giving herself a chance to say goodbye to the employees she's come to know and respect. She visits the restaurant where she's been working, blending in with the morning prep crew. Maya is already there, her face tense but focused. Javier quietly stacks plates, his movements slow from exhaustion. Raj chops vegetables, his eyes heavy with the weight of unspoken frustrations. During a break, Alexis pulls them aside and speaks from her heart without fully revealing her identity. "You're stronger than you think," she tells them. "And you deserve better than this. Don't let anyone make you feel small. Things are going to change soon. I promise." Her words confuse them, but also offer a flicker of hope. Maya smiles faintly, squeezing Alexis's hand. You've been a bright spot in this mess, Layla. Don't let them wear you down. Alexis swallows the lump in her throat and promises herself that she won't let them down. Exposing the web of lies. With her undercover work complete, Alexis steps into action. She spends the afternoon compiling all the evidence she's gathered. Audio recordings, Brad's demeaning remarks, Rick's threats, and other managers' discriminatory behavior. Maya's notebook, a detailed record of incidents stretching back months. Employee testimonies, anonymous accounts from workers like Javier and Leo, exposing the exploitation and bias they've endured. Internal documentation, records proving that HR repeatedly dismissed valid complaints. Alexis sends everything to her legal team and drafts a plan to hold a surprise meeting with the restaurant's management staff that evening. The confrontation begins. That evening, Alexis walks into the restaurant not as Leela, but as herself. Alexis Foster, CEO of Bright Horizons, dressed in a sharp blazer and heels, she commands immediate attention as she strides into the dining area, where Brad, Rick, and other senior staff are holding a casual meeting. The room falls silent as everyone stares at her, their expressions ranging from shock to confusion. "Good evening," Alexis begins, her voice steady and authoritative. "I'm Alexis Foster, the owner and CEO of this company, and we need to talk." Brad recovers first, his smirk reappearing. "What brings you here, ma'am? Didn't know we were getting a special visit." Alexis steps closer, her gaze piercing. "I'm not here for pleasantries. I'm here to address the toxic culture you've allowed to fester in this restaurant, and likely across other locations you oversee." The staff exchange nervous glances, but Brad's arrogance doesn't waver. "I'm not sure what you're talking about," he says smoothly. "We run a tight ship here." Without missing a beat, Alexis places a folder on the table. "This is a collection of evidence I've gathered over the past 3 weeks. Audio recordings, witness testimonies, and internal documents that paint a very different picture. A picture of racism, harassment, exploitation, and systematic abuse." Brad's smirk falters as he flips through the pages. Rick pales, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. Turning the tables, Alexis doesn't stop there. She plays one of the recordings aloud. Brad's voice mocking employees and calling Bright Horizons' mission statement PR fluff. The damning words echo through the room, leaving no room for denial. "What do you have to say for yourself, Brad?" Alexis demands. Brad stammers, trying to justify his actions. "Look, these are just jokes. People blow things out of proportion. It's not like anyone was really hurt." Alexis's voice sharpens. "Tell that to Javier, who's been forced to work unpaid overtime under the threat of deportation. Or Maya, who's been passed over for promotions because of blatant favoritism. Or Raj, who was humiliated in front of the entire kitchen." Rick tries to interject, but Alexis silences him with a glare. "And you, Rick, your behavior has been particularly reprehensible. Publicly berating employees, sabotaging their work, mocking their accents. Do you have anything to say?" Rick stutters, unable to meet her gaze. Empowering the staff. After confronting the managers, Alexis invites the kitchen and delivery staff to join the meeting. One by one, they file in, their faces a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Alexis stands at the center of the room, addressing them directly. "I owe you all an apology," she begins. "I built this company to stand for something better. For inclusivity, fairness, and respect. But somewhere along the way, that vision was lost. I take full responsibility for that." She pauses, letting her words sink in, "But I'm here to make things right. Starting today, there will be major changes. The people who have exploited and mistreated you will be held accountable. And I want to hear from you, your ideas, your concerns, your stories. Together, we're going to rebuild this company from the ground up." The employees exchange stunned glances. Maya steps forward hesitantly. "You're serious? You're really going to fix this?" Alexis nods firmly. "I promise." and I don't make promises lightly. Immediate action. Alexis doesn't wait to enact change. On the spot, she suspends Brad and Rick. They are escorted out of the building while further investigations are conducted. Announces policy reforms. Alexis outlines new policies to ensure fair scheduling, unbiased promotion practices, and stronger protections for employees against discrimination and harassment. Creates a safe reporting system. She introduces an independent third-party hotline for employees to report issues without fear of retaliation. The employee's response. As the meeting concludes, the mood in the room shifts. Employees who once felt powerless now feel a glimmer of hope. Maya hugs Alexis, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispers, "for seeing us, for listening." Javier, standing a little taller than usual, adds, "I didn't think anyone cared. But maybe things can be different." Raj nods in agreement. It's about time someone stood up to them. Cliffhanger ending for Part 4. As Alexis leaves the restaurant, her phone buzzes with a call from her COO. "Alexis, we've just received an inquiry from the media about the allegations. They want a statement." Alexis smiles grimly. "Prepare one," she says. "It's time the world knew the truth about Bright Horizons and what we're doing to make it better." She hangs up, her mind already racing with plans for the next phase of her mission. But she knows the battle isn't over yet. The real work, transforming her company's culture, has just begun. Rebuilding the foundation. Introduction. A new day, a new fight. The fallout from Alexis' revelations is immediate and far-reaching. News outlets pick up the story, and social media buzzes with outrage. Former employees come forward with their own accounts of mistreatment, adding to the growing storm surrounding Bright Horizons. While Alexis anticipated the backlash, the scale of it is overwhelming. She stands at the heart of the storm, not to deflect blame, but to take full responsibility. She knows that the road to redemption will be long and arduous, but she is determined to rebuild the company she once dreamed of. A company that truly stands for fairness, inclusivity, and respect. The first step, public accountability. The morning after her confrontation with the restaurant managers, Alexis holds a press conference at Bright Horizons headquarters. A podium is set up in front of a crowd of reporters, employees, and community members. Alexis begins by addressing the allegations head-on. "Over the past weeks, I've seen firsthand the failures of my company. What I discovered has shaken me to my core, and I take full responsibility. I failed to see the toxic culture that was allowed to grow under my watch, and for that, I apologize. But apologies are not enough. Today, I am taking action to ensure that Bright Horizons becomes the company it was always meant to be." She announces the immediate termination of Brad and Rick, along with several other senior managers implicated in the investigation. She also outlines a comprehensive plan for reform. Independent audits. Third-party audits will review every location's workplace practices. Employee Advocacy Council. A diverse group of employees from all levels will meet regularly with senior leadership to share concerns and ideas. Mandatory training programs. All employees, especially managers, will undergo rigorous training on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The crowd is a mix of skepticism and cautious optimism. Alexis knows her words are only the beginning. The real challenge lies in proving her commitment through action. Reaching out to the employees, Alexis shifts her focus to reconnecting with her employees, starting with the restaurant where she went undercover. She organizes a town hall meeting, inviting every staff member to share their thoughts, experiences, and frustrations. The turnout is larger than expected. At first, the employees are hesitant to speak, but Maya breaks the silence. "I've worked here for years, and I've seen things I never thought I'd have the courage to talk about. But after what you did, Miss Foster, coming here, seeing what we go through, I believe you actually care." Her words open the floodgates. Employees take turns sharing their stories, from unfair scheduling to verbal abuse. Alexis listens intently, taking notes and responding with empathy. One employee, Alonso, raises a concern about the fear of retaliation. What's stopping the next Brad or Rick from punishing us for speaking up? Alexis assures him that the new policies will include strict protections against retaliation. If anyone feels unsafe reporting an issue, they can contact the third-party hotline or speak directly to me, she promises. The internal struggle. As Alexis implements changes, she faces resistance from within. Some senior executives argue that her reforms are too drastic, fearing they will disrupt operations and hurt profits. Others claim she's overreacting to a few bad apples. In a heated board meeting, Alexis doesn't hold back. "If you think this is about profits," she says, her voice firm, "then you don't understand what Bright Horizons stands for. This isn't just a company, it's a promise to our employees and customers. If we can't live up to that promise, then we don't deserve to exist." Her conviction silences the room. Slowly but surely, she begins to win over the skeptics, reminding them of the values that inspired the company's founding. Healing the workforce. Alexis launches a company-wide initiative to rebuild trust among her employees. She visits multiple locations, sitting down with workers to hear their concerns. At one restaurant, she meets Carla, a single mother who shares her struggles with juggling late-night shifts and childcare. "I just need a little flexibility," Carla says, her voice trembling. "But every time I ask, they tell me I'm being difficult." Alexis makes a note to introduce flexible scheduling options for employees like Carla. No one should have to choose between their job and their family, she tells her. In another location, she meets Samir, a line cook who was demoted after refusing to laugh at a manager's offensive joke. Samir is hesitant to share his story, fearing backlash, but Alexis assures him that he's safe. "Your courage matters," she says, "and it's people like you who will help us create a better workplace." The redemption of Javier, whose story of exploitation deeply moved Alexis, becomes a symbol of the change she's fighting for. She personally intervenes to ensure he receives back pay for the unpaid hours he worked and secures legal assistance to protect him from deportation. When Alexis visits him in the kitchen a few weeks later, Javier is almost unrecognizable. He stands taller, his shoulders less burdened by fear. "Thank you," he says simply, "for seeing me, for fighting for me." Alexis smiles, her heart swelling with pride. "You're part of this family, Javier, and no one messes with my family." A public victory. As the reforms take shape, public opinion begins to shift. Former critics of Bright Horizons acknowledge the company's efforts to address its shortcomings. News outlets highlight Alexis's bold leadership, praising her decision to go undercover and experience the reality of her employees' lives. Customers who boycotted the company return, encouraged by the changes. Sales begin to recover, and morale among employees improves. Maya, now promoted to a managerial position, becomes a vocal advocate for the new culture. "If we want this to work," she tells her team, "we all have to hold each other accountable. This isn't just Alexis's fight, it's ours too." The culmination. An all-hands meeting. 3 months after her undercover mission, Alexis calls an all-hands meeting, streamed live to every Bright Horizons location. She stands on stage, flanked by employees like Maya, Javier, and Leo, who represent the heart of the company. "Today we close one chapter and begin another," Alexis says. "This company is not defined by its mistakes, but by how we rise above them. Together, we've taken the first steps toward creating a workplace where everyone feels valued, respected, and heard." The crowd erupts in applause, a standing ovation that brings tears to Alexis's eyes. Cliffhanger ending for Part 5. As the meeting concludes, Alexis receives a private message from one of her legal advisors. "We've uncovered more evidence," the message reads. "It implicates additional senior leaders across the company. We need to act quickly." Alexis' expression hardens. She knows her work is far from over. "If there are still people who think they're above accountability," she murmurs, "they're about to learn otherwise." With renewed determination, she steps off the stage, ready to face the next battle in her fight to rebuild Bright Horizons. The final transformation. Introduction. The final push. Months into her mission to reform Bright Horizons, Alexis Foster stands at the precipice of lasting change. The evidence unearthed by her legal team reveals systemic failures across multiple locations, implicating several high-ranking executives in discriminatory practices and corruption. The stakes have never been higher, but Alexis is determined to finish what she started. Enough is enough, she tells her team during a strategy meeting. This isn't just about rebuilding a company. It's about setting a precedent. If we can do this, we can prove to every employee and every customer that change is possible, even in the face of entrenched injustice. Exposing the final rot. The new evidence implicates a cluster of senior leaders, including Brad's immediate superior, Cheryl, a district manager who turned a blind eye to complaints and actively protected toxic managers. It also uncovers how some executives manipulated payroll systems to funnel bonuses to their favorites while denying fair compensation to others. The revelations threaten to tarnish the company's reputation even further, but Alexis refuses to hide the truth. Instead, she prepares for a decisive confrontation. At a board meeting, Alexis presents the findings, her voice unwavering. "This corruption ends now," she declares. "We have the opportunity to rebuild Bright Horizons from its foundation, but only if we're willing to cut out every piece of rot, no matter how high up it goes." The room is silent, the weight of her words sinking in. One board member, initially skeptical of Alexis' reforms, finally speaks up. "You have my full support," he says. "Let's do this the right way." The public reckoning. Alexis schedules another press conference, this time addressing the additional findings. Standing at the podium, she doesn't flinch as she lays bare the extent of the company's failings. "This company has been complicit in practices that go against everything we claim to stand for," she says, her tone firm yet empathetic. "We cannot undo the harm that's been done, but we can ensure it never happens again. To those who have suffered, I promise, we are listening, and we are acting." She announces the immediate termination of Cheryl and other implicated executives. Additionally, she pledges to work with labor rights organizations to audit the company's operations and implement transparent oversight systems. The response is mixed. While many applaud her transparency and bold action, others question whether Bright Horizons can recover from such a public scandal. Winning back trust. Alexis focuses on restoring trust, starting with the employees who've suffered the most. She arranges one-on-one meetings with affected workers, personally apologizing and listening to their stories. During a meeting with Amina, a Somali employee who had been ridiculed for her accent, Alexis learns the depth of the emotional toll the discrimination has taken. "They made me feel like I didn't belong," Amina says, tears in her eyes. "I stayed because I needed the job, but every day it hurt." Alexis apologizes sincerely. "You do belong, Amina, and I'm sorry it took me so long to see what you've endured. I promise you'll never have to feel that way again." Amina's story inspires Alexis to launch a company-wide initiative called Voices of Bright Horizons, a platform where employees can share their experiences anonymously or publicly. The initiative becomes a powerful tool for healing and accountability, empowering the employees. One of Alexis's most ambitious reforms is the creation of an employee ownership program. Under the program, employees are given the opportunity to earn equity in the company, ensuring they have a direct stake in its success. "This isn't just my company," Alexis tells a gathering of employees. "It's yours too. Together, we're going to build something we can all be proud of." The announcement is met with cheers and applause, a moment of unity that rekindles hope among the workforce. A new leadership team. Alexis works tirelessly to restructure the leadership team, replacing toxic managers with individuals who embody the company's values. She promotes Maya to district manager, making her the first woman of color to hold the position in Bright Horizons history. During a private conversation, Maya expresses both gratitude and apprehension. "I never thought I'd make it this far," she admits. "But I'm scared. What if I fail?" Alexis places a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone, Maya. None of us are. And if you ever need help, I'll be right here." The redemption of the brand. With internal reforms underway, Alexis turned her attention to the company's public image. She partners with grassroots organizations and community leaders to launch outreach programs, including free meal initiatives for underserved communities and mentorship programs for aspiring chefs and restaurant workers. The efforts pay off. Customers begin returning to Bright Horizons, inspired by its commitment to meaningful change. The company's sales, which had plummeted during the scandal, gradually recover. A personal revelation. Amid the chaos of rebuilding, Alexis takes a rare moment to reflect on her journey. Sitting alone in her office late one night, she looks at an old photograph of her mother, who worked as a waitress for most of her life. "You taught me to fight for what's right," Alexis murmurs, her voice thick with emotion. "I just hope I'm making you proud." The memory strengthens her resolve. She knows the fight isn't over, but she's ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead. A celebration of change. 6 months after her undercover mission, Alexis organizes a company-wide celebration to mark the progress Bright Horizons has made. The event is held at the company's flagship restaurant, now a shining example of inclusivity and collaboration. Employees from every location attend, sharing stories of how the reforms have impacted their lives. Javier, now a shift supervisor, gives a heartfelt speech. "I almost gave up," he says, his voice trembling. "But Ms. Foster showed me that things can get better. She gave me hope when I had none." The room erupts in applause, and Alexis feels a deep sense of fulfillment. Cliffhanger ending for Part 6. As the celebration winds down, Alexis receives a phone call from her legal advisor. "We've identified more irregularities in the payroll system," the advisor says. "It looks like someone's been siphoning funds for years. This might go deeper than we thought." Alexis's jaw tightens. Just when she thought the worst was behind her, a new challenge emerges. "Send me everything," she says. "We're not done yet." With a determined look, she steps away from the celebration, ready to face the next battle. Unearthing the final betrayal. The hidden saboteur. The phone call about payroll irregularities reignites Alexis's investigative instincts. Early the next morning, she meets with her legal advisor and a forensic accountant to review the evidence. What they uncover is staggering. Someone within the finance department has been siphoning funds into a series of offshore accounts. The scheme spans years, diverting bonuses, overtime payments, and even funds allocated for employee benefits. The prime suspect is Victor Hayes, the long-serving chief financial officer, CFO. Known for his charisma and sharp business acumen, Victor has long been a trusted member of Bright Horizons' leadership team. Alexis feels a deep pang of betrayal as she realizes how Victor exploited that trust. The web of deception. Digging deeper, Alexis discovers emails and encrypted communications implicating Victor in a broader conspiracy. Not only was he embezzling funds, but he also actively covered up employee complaints and manipulated financial records to hide losses caused by toxic workplace practices. "It's like he was deliberately sabotaging the company," Alexis murmurs during a tense meeting with her legal team. "And we trusted him to help us grow." She realizes Victor's actions might explain some of the company's financial struggles and the culture of impunity among toxic managers like Brad and Rick. Victor had created a protective shield for those who served his interests, allowing them to flourish while silencing anyone who dared to challenge the system. The confrontation. Rather than summoning Victor to her office, Alexis decides to confront him during a board meeting. She knows the element of surprise is crucial. As the meeting begins, Victor sits confidently at the table, oblivious to the storm about to descend. Alexis enters with a stack of documents and the forensic accountant by her side. "I'd like to address some serious concerns," Alexis begins, her voice calm but steely. "Victor, you've been with Bright Horizons for a long time. I need you to explain these." She hands out copies of the evidence, detailing the embezzlement scheme and his role in covering up complaints. The room grows silent as board members read through the damning documents. Victor tries to deflect, his charm slipping. "This is a misunderstanding," he says, forcing a smile. "Accounting errors, maybe. I'd never." "Stop lying." Alexis cuts him off, her tone icy. "We have proof. Do you have anything to say for yourself before I terminate your employment and hand this over to the authorities?" Victor's mask cracks, and he begins to stammer excuses, blaming subordinates and poor communication. But it's too late. Alexis signals security, and Victor is escorted out of the building as the board watches in stunned silence. Cleaning up the fallout, Victor's arrest sends shockwaves through the company. Employees are initially shaken, but Alexis seizes the opportunity to emphasize her commitment to transparency and accountability. She announces an independent review of all financial practices, ensuring every dollar is accounted for and properly allocated. Additionally, she pledges to repay employees who were affected by the embezzlement, including back pay for withheld bonuses and overtime. To rebuild trust, Alexis also invites employees to participate in financial oversight committees, giving them a direct voice in how resources are managed. The people's advocate, Javier's role grows. One of the first beneficiaries of the financial reforms is Javier, whose unpaid overtime is finally compensated. Alexis, inspired by his resilience and the respect he commands among his peers, offers him a new role as an employee advocate. Javier hesitates, unsure if he's ready for the responsibility. "I've never done anything like this before," he admits. Alexis smiles warmly. "You don't have to be perfect, Javier. You just have to care, and I know you do. You've lived through the worst of this system. Now you can help make it better." Javier accepts, becoming a bridge between workers and management. His presence reassures employees that their voices will finally be heard. The impact of change. With Victor's removal and the new policies in place, Bright Horizons begins to see tangible improvements. Employee morale. Workers report feeling safer and more valued. The Voices of Bright Horizons platform flourishes, with employees openly sharing ideas and feedback. Financial recovery. The company starts to stabilize as embezzled funds are recovered and reinvested in employee programs and operational improvements. Community support. Customers who once boycotted Bright Horizons return, inspired by the company's commitment to change. Maya, now thriving as a district manager, spearheads a mentorship program to support underrepresented employees in leadership development. Alexis faces her own fears. Despite the progress, Alexis grapples with self-doubt. Late one night, she confides in Maya during a quiet moment at the flagship restaurant. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing enough," Alexis admits, "if I'm strong enough to fix everything." Maya looks at her with a mix of admiration and determination. "You didn't just fix things, Alexis. You gave us hope. That's more than enough." Alexis feels a surge of gratitude and resolve. For the first time in months, she allows herself to believe that Bright Horizons can become the company she always dreamed of. The culmination, Bright Horizons Reborn. 1 year after the undercover mission, Alexis organizes a grand reopening event at the flagship location. Employees, customers, and community leaders gather to celebrate the company's transformation. During her speech, Alexis reflects on the journey. "This company was built on the idea that we could do things differently, that we could create a workplace where everyone feels valued. We lost our way, but we found it again, thanks to the courage of our employees. This isn't just my company. It's ours. And together, we're unstoppable." Javier, Maya, and Leo stand beside her as she cuts the ribbon, marking a new chapter for Bright Horizons. The crowd erupts into cheers, a powerful symbol of the unity and resilience that now define the company. The final scene. Hope and a new vision. Later that evening, Alexis sits in her office, reflecting on the journey. Her phone buzzes with a message from a former employee. "Thank you for fighting for us. I never thought a CEO would care this much. You've given me hope." Alexis smiles, her heart full. She knows the work isn't over, but for the first time, she feels at peace. She opens her laptop and begins drafting her next vision for Bright Horizons, a plan to expand the employee ownership program and create a scholarship fund for employees' children. As she types, a quote from her mother comes to mind. "Change doesn't happen overnight, but every step matters." Alexis leans back in her chair, gazing out the window at the city lights. "We've come so far," she whispers, "and we're just getting started."